Hi, welcome to today's session. Alan, Hilla, Brian, and Hope, we're all here to have a great session with you today. It looks like we're having a little bit of microphone difficulties, but we are moving really quick on doing this. And because of that, we want to talk about a number of different topics. So when we look at platform engineering and PlatformCon, and we look at the intersection between DevOps and what's happening, I think what we could do is start the conversation, and maybe I can turn to Brian or Hope or Hiller and maybe Alan when he has his microphone back. What are the thoughts here from the audience on how platform engineering and DevOps kind of intersect? Hope, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, thank you. I think they intersect quite nicely. One, platform engineering teams often are using DevOps practices, right? DevOps is not something that is exclusively limited to teams that are doing software engineering to build features, right? Anyone who is touching software really can use DevOps. And by that token, it helps them understand their customers, the developers, better because they can sympathize with some of their pains. They are using similar tools in their work. So I think there's a great connection there between the two.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, when we look at research, when we see how it all comes together, some of the research we see is there are organizations, large and small, that have different levels of maturity, right? There's DevOps, there's SREs, there's platform engineering, and there's everything in between. Brian, what are your thoughts on this topic?
First, I think we should define DevOps. I mean, for me, DevOps is the way that we do work. It's everything. I think a lot of people think DevOps is building CD pipelines for other people. That's just not true. So, but you need a good platform to be able to execute. I mean, to really do DevOps well, you're doing continuous delivery, which means you have a really good platform to enable that makes CD very easy.
Hey guys, can you hear me now?
We can. Yeah, Alan, absolutely.
So it was the echo setting. I apologize. So, Paul, thanks for filling in. I think, you know, I don't want the audience for PlatformCon is one that's familiar with DevOps, familiar with both the successes and failures and challenges around DevOps, and specifically, you know, some of the things around DevSecOps. I wanted to focus in on our topic here, which is how does DevSecOps and platform engineering let us sleep at night or sleep better at night? I don't think anything we do ever lets us sleep soundly at night when it comes to security. But clearly, you know, moving beyond just the initial DevOps into DevSecOps, and I've been involved in this for 8-10 years now. One of the issues that I think, and it's a big reason why platform engineering has struck the chord that it has, is that we can't just shift security to developers, right? And I think that right at its heart, right there, is the issue that, or mistake or a misstep that we've made in the DevOps movement. You know, shift left, I'm not against shift left, but if shift left means to you putting security on the plate of the developers, I think we run into problems. Now, Hila, I know you're kind of familiar with this, involved in the DevOps movement and security as well. You know, if you don't mind, you want to kick off the conversation, and the rest of the panel can jump in. Has that? I mean, it's not been. I'm not going to call it a failure, but has that fundamentally been a problem with DevSecOps?
I would say that in terms of shift left, it's not saying okay, developers please utilize any security practices and start now and do whatever is needed in order to do so. It just, for me, it means to instill the mindset. So still the DevOps engineers are the ones responsible to incorporate security tools and scanning like IaaS, DAST, SAST, etc. And the fact that we need to do it early in the development stage basically means two things. first of all, to not interfere with the development work, because if the security tools will find some vulnerabilities, they still have time to fix it, and not like, oh man, I need to push it to production like in 2 days, and I don't have time to deal with it. When we do it that early, we have the time to deal with it and fix the issues in a timely manner, but also to showcase the developers, hey, security is a thing. We need to take it into consideration, need to give it the proper attention. We are handling it, okay? You have the tools, etc., but we need to remind the developers that security is a shared responsibility. That's the whole idea. So we will help you by instilling the tools, and then you will take it from there once you have issues to fix, and then you fix them, etc. So this is for me what shift left means. It doesn't mean that, okay, here's security, take it and move it to developers. It just means that it is a shared responsibility, and we now divide it between all the people to take it and have a clear path towards instilling security practices.
No,
And-
I agree with that. We opened up and kind of teased the audience with what is DevOps and how is all kind of things working out, which I think is a kind of a good understanding. The shift left kind of paradigm is very interesting. And again, I was kind of highlighting as a research focused person. I'm an analyst. I focus on this space quite a bit. There is a level of maturity. And when you look at the pipelines, right, the CI/CD pipelines, and shifting everything from build, day 0, day 1, day 2. And when you have that security piece in there, you also have telemetry pipeline and across the SDLC. Where does the responsibility, I think, fall within most organizations? Because again, there is a maturity that kind of comes into this play.
And so one of the things that I've seen a lot is companies just throw tools at developers and say good luck, and that's the bad version of shift left, right? Yeah. And like Hila said, it should be the platform bakes these things in as much as possible. I mean, there's some things platform can't check on security, that we should have security teaching the developers how to write secure code instead of them just making it up as they go along. But it should be a service. I mean, the platform should bake as much of that in as possible without the developers having to do all the configuration. Same with compliance, same with everything else.
Yeah, I agree with everyone. And for me, it is the standardized infrastructure that they're building for the app dev, right? So the highest purpose to me that the platform engineering team can serve and the platform can serve is they're abstracting away all of those complex security concerns from the developers, right? So they have the secure by default configurations, they have the best practices, they have guidelines, and hopefully they are helping to automate a lot of it. So then the developers can focus in on things that maybe are not as routine and aren't a given. So instead of them feeling, like they're in the factory making the same widget over and over, they can express a little more creativity, but still stay within those security guidelines.
So I think there's been an evolution here, right? I think when DevSecOps first kind of went mainstream, if you will, or at least people started acknowledging it as a real thing, the idea was security people are going to make security tools for developers, right? And then it became, and quite frankly, because a lot of security vendors said, hey, those developers, they have a lot of budget, more budget than security. So if we could make security tools for developers, we could get into that bucket of budget. And I think we've seen that doesn't necessarily work. I think, Hila, what you described is the ideal of what, we're all in this together. Security's everyone's responsibility. But just saying, and because I'm doing that, I'm putting security tools that run in your IDE or that run in your Git. And now, developer, we've given you security tools to use. Developers already spend somewhere between 11 and 25% of their time doing coding. right? They spend the overwhelming majority of their time not coding, not developing per se. And developers want to develop. They don't want, they want quality. They want to turn out quality code. No one wants to turn out insecure code. But I think one of the best arguments for platform engineering is, can we build this into the platform, as I think Hope and Brian, you really hit it. Can we build this into the platform that kind of automates what we can automate, that allows developers to develop on secure platforms, secure environments, right? So that security is baked in, but we're not asking our developers or expecting our developers to be security pros, because they're not and they never will be. And Healer, I think you said it best. I think that's the ideal. Just it hasn't always worked out that way, is what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, but the thing is that, I mean, we don't expect them to be security pros, but there are some aspects of security that they need to take into consideration. For example, if they use a dependency that has some vulnerabilities, they need to understand what does it mean to have vulnerabilities. They need to understand what is the implication of using a package of as a dependency with vulnerabilities. So you can't do something just because others are doing it, and because, oh, when I do a boy install, you just do this and that, and that's it. You need to understand what you're doing, because it could ultimately affect the production environment, and nobody wants that. So I'm not saying they need to know everything, but they need to know at least the proximity parts of their day-to-day of coding. There are dependencies, there are vulnerabilities when it comes to dependencies. So this is like the most closest thing that there is for their day-to-day. And then afterwards, we can educate it for anything else. But this is like the main thing that could ultimately affect production the most.
Let me ask you another concept I want to throw out at the team here, at the panel, and give me, stream of consciousness, give me your thoughts. Having developers as security champions, not security pros, but security champions. So, saying, hey, security is important, and we care about security, and what is security? We just did a DevSecOps event at RSA a month and a half, 2 months ago, and this whole concept of security champions, I saw it at Black Hat last year as well. So non-security professionals becoming security champions. Hope, I see you shaking your head. Does that resonate?
It does. It does, because there's a lot, as we've all agreed, for each developer to think about. But a security champion embedded in a team is that connection back to the overall security part of the organization. So they can advocate for best practices. They can help coach the team on what they should do, what security considerations there are, and they can bring information back into the team. So they will still have tools where they can look at system performance, they can look at security, but bringing that champion in helps change the culture toward one that is more security minded.
Well, and I think that everybody should be a champion for that. I think one of the problems is people don't think about security. Well, they think about it as different than any other kind of quality, but it's just another aspect of quality. And if you incentivize developers to focus on quality and then make sure they understand security is part of that, also compliance is something else I push really hard. It's different, right? But it's still a quality aspect. That if you incentivize quality, then the developers become champions for security. They think about it. We're talking about security. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to be a champion for it.
I think they are, but I think there's a limit to the amount of overhead they can accommodate. There still has to be something else, right? That's picking up the bulk of that and letting them tap into it.
I like where both of you are going, and I think the challenge that a lot of organizations run into is the business KPIs for the developers doesn't always align to what best practices should be. And and unfortunately that's true. I mean, like I'm finding in our research that that 24% of organizations want to release code on an hourly basis, but yet only 8% are able to do so. But what that means, and what we were finding in the additional research points over trending over the years, in 2022, only 29% of respondents said that they were doing continuous testing. In 2023, that number jumped up to 66%. But that was largely due to the fact that the quality of the applications that were being pushed out the door were not good enough for the product that was being delivered. So unless you establish a culture inside your organization, it's about getting the job done. And DevOps and release engineers are going to push the big green button to get the code out the door.
And a lot of companies are willing to do that because they see the risk as being so small. The probability is so small. They take their chances until something happens, right? And then they invest. So
until they get bit.
But that's the thing about security. Everyone says or thinks that it's not going to happen to me. And that's why all the security tasks have lower priority. And we're like, we are optimistic creatures. It will be okay. No. And then if something happens, then we see how much we are not equipped to deal with it. So we have to insert it into the day-to-day regularly. Otherwise, we will never get to it.
So, back, as I said, I've been in security for 25, almost 30 years now. Back then we used to call it the zebra in the herd mentality, right? Those lions are going to eat a few zebras, but not today. They're not eating this zebra today. But sooner or later, every zebra has its day, right? And I think that's been one of the big shifts in security over the last few years is much more of a focus on just not pure prevention, scanning, making sure it's vulnerability free and these kinds of things, but also response. And I think that's been a forgotten part of DevSecOps and the platform engineering disciplines, which is how do we respond? All right, boom, we just got breached. We are, who is it? Ticketmaster here in the US, I think 500 million records or something got breached. What are we doing from a platform and a DevX point of view? Yes, we could patch a particular vulnerability, but how do we make sure this stuff doesn't happen again and again? How do we stop the next vulnerability? Right? Classic DevOps, we got those feedback loops. We see what happens. How do we incorporate that into our platform, into our dev practices, into our DevSecOps to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen again?
Well, there's two parts to that. One, I talk about continuous delivery quite a bit. And one of the common pushbacks I get is my customers don't want change that frequently until there's a vulnerability. And now you don't have the ability because you haven't been practicing changing that frequently. And so it takes you forever to fix something. But number two, it's not just the pipeline checking to see if something's vulnerable. What are we doing in production? Because security is one of those things that's just like quicksand. It's secure today, it's just not secure tomorrow. And if you're not constantly refreshing that app to make sure it remains secure, then you're kind of living in a dream world of security.
I think this is also a spot where if an organization can, and this is maybe a little dream world here as well, but if an organization can, a little dose of chaos engineering, run through that, understand how people respond, a little dose of SREs, being able to have clear pathways to get the information back to the platform team. If they are, hopefully they are involved. And so that can be extended across the enterprise. Those are two good, sometimes underutilized paths to help.
Absolutely. One of the things that a trend I've been seeing doing panels like this and in talking to people is we tend to make the developers kind of the whipping boys, right? It's their fault, right? They didn't do this or they didn't do that. I think, again, one of the principles and one of the attractive pieces of platform engineering is, hey, we can't put everything on the developer. The more we can build into the platform, the more automation we build in, the more guardrails we build in, the the load, the more load we could take off that developer's plate. So for our audience out here, let's talk a little bit about how do we do that? How does fundamentally nuts and bolts kinds of stuff, how do we build this into the platform so that the developers have just, they're starting with a leg up in this race?
Yeah,
All the
well,
way.
Alan,
Yeah.
I'd just like to jump in there a little bit because I think it's there's some synergies between the theoretical of what could happen versus what we're seeing from a data perspective, and it's exactly to your point. The data shows that the number one challenge that organizations, when I talk to organizations, their challenges they're trying to modernize, but the challenge they run into with modernizing applications is complexity, and putting all that complexity on a team to do the work doesn't solve the problem. It actually introduces far more problems. So many organizations are actually looking to vendors to simplify the delivery through platforms, through delivery systems, to make it easier for generalists versus specialists. In fact, what I'm seeing in research is 67% of organizations are looking to hire generalists over specialists, and they're looking for platforms to reduce that complexity. So you're spot on the conversation there and the direction that the data is driving.
Well, and the other thing that I think gets overlooked quite a bit is a lot of, platform is seen as internal tooling, and well, we don't need to treat it like a product, but you should have even more product management around a platform, internal platform, than you have for an external product. Because number one, there's no market forces forcing you to not build stuff that you don't need. But you need to focus on your customers, understand what they need, understand what problems they have. And again, not just build tools, throw it out there and say good luck.
I agree.
Planning is something that's super important here. I can't say for, in all organizations out there, but not all organizations really take the time, the necessary time to planning and even pre-planning what we want to achieve and talking to the developers, which sounds like what talking. Yeah, we need to talk to the developers and understand what do they need, which problems do they have, and what is the best way to solve them. Because let's say we have one approach, but maybe they see it differently. And if they don't see it the same way as us, then we don't even generate the buy-in that we need for them to use the platform, and then nobody will use the platform. So we have to plan, we have to talk with the developers, understand the pain points, and discuss with them the solution. And then they'll be able to give us feedback of, yeah, this makes sense, or we think you should change it to X and that. And then we can ensure that we provide the suitable platform for them to use.
Yeah. Once I was actually in the very unique position of being the product manager for the platform engineering team, while I was also the product manager for the IoT platform team, which was a customer of the platform engineering team. So you talk about me struggling with myself some days on prioritization, but it did give me a very clear look into those challenges and how talking with each team was a little different, but you had to marry the two. And like you said, Gila, treating them as a customer, listening, and making sure that the platform engineering team is running way ahead of the development team. They actually have a real roadmap that they are socializing, that they are discussing. They are getting true feedback, and they are listening. They are not going and finding tools that the platform engineering team thinks is cool, but they are disregarding what the development teams have stated as their preference. So the platform engineering team absolutely should be looking for the best solution. But yes, the developers are their customers, and they need to listen.
So Hope, you definitively say that, Brian. I'm gonna let you jump in here, but I've heard people talking out of both sides of their mouth on this. Is platform engine in orthodox platform engineering, if there is such a thing as orthodox platform engineering, are they working for their customer, which happens to be the dev team. Or
In
Well,
that
DevX.
organization, we did, and partly because I put my foot down. I will
Okay.
say, honestly, because at certain times they would try to switch the team off to working on, more infrastructure costs and other things like that, which of course are important. But I didn't want really, the platform engineering team to focus on that. That should be someone else's job, ideally, right? So over time, we pushed it over and over and over until our roadmap, 95%, maybe 90%, honestly,
yeah. So
was
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
working with the development teams.
Yep.
And
Brian?
so the best I've experienced was, I was in platform at a very large enterprise, and I was one of the product managers for one of the internal delivery platform products. We were absolutely expected to go out there and talk to our customers. But the thing other people miss also is that one of our customers is organization's goals. And so like our platform was focused on making continuous delivery easy, but we were also focused on making it, if you don't want to do CD, if you like Git flow, it's going to hurt you because we wanted you doing continuous delivery. And so people will come and talk to the platform area of that company and ask for make things like Git flow easy. And the answer is always, that's not on our roadmap because it doesn't align with organizational goals. And one of the things I talk about all the time is if we're doing platform engineering correctly, doing it well, everyone's slightly dissatisfied with this. So it's the best job possible because you're very close to your customers, but everyone's always constantly slightly irritated with you.
It's one of those. You can't win. You can't win. We've got about 15 minutes or so. I want to bring this back to the title. How can we sleep better or allow our teams to sleep better at night? To quote Colonel Jessup from A Few Good Men, the movie, under the blanket of our security, right? You can't handle the truth. Is the truth that we just can't sleep good at night? Or, can we leave our audience with 3 things that they can do that'll let their team sleep better at night? Paul, anything in your research on that, maybe?
Yeah, I would align it very closely to what the challenges that organizations are running into, right? There's definitely complexity issues. We talked about that, reducing the complexity by removing I will call it, and this is probably not going to be great for the audience to hear, but remove the do-it-yourself kind of scenarios and focus in on a platform approach because the devils are in the details. If you miss something, you miss it, and it will keep you up at night. And by doing it yourself, you never really are comfortable knowing did you get everything that you were supposed to, address everything you're supposed to address. So that's why you kind of leverage a platform approach to do it. The other thing that I see in research is skill gap issues. Skill gap issues are a major, major challenge. I mentioned a stat that talked about the hiring of generalists over specialists, but I think that by reducing the complexity, you're also going to reduce the number of human capital that you need to do the job. And that's something else to kind of focus because nobody wants to be called at 2:00 in the morning to get something that's broken. The other thing I would highlight as part of our research of the 3 things, because you told me to throw 3, and here's my third one. The third thing is to harmonize and unify the pipelines. So the telemetry pipeline, the security pipeline, and the CI/CD pipeline, and the overall SDLC. If you can do that, if there's some harmonization across your teams, for whether it's your DevOps teams, your platform engineering teams, and developers, by harmonizing that will alleviate the pointing fingers of potentially having any breakpoints. So I think that's also related back to the platform approach.
Fair. Hila, what about you? What would be your advice?
So first of all, I think that we have to do it early. I mean, you know what? Leave the developers, okay? Leave it aside. We, like everyone in the company, needs to do their part in order to be in the best security posture scenario possible. For example, if I don't review the PRs in the code review with security eyes, then I can, security group can be opened, any. I neglect to see that, and security incident can arrive from that. And anything of that sort. So I would say that we have to be vigilant, and we can say once a security incident happens, we will deal with it. No, I am very keen to being proactive. So I would say it should be the managers, and usually it's the managers and not the people, because the people usually deal with their tasks day to day, and that's it. So the manager should incorporate the security goals into project objectives and performance metrics, and basically understand how we can tackle it upfront as much as possible. And then we can reduce the possibility that a security incident will happen. And I can tell you also from my experience, I'm in the tech industry for the last 16 years. Yes, I'm old, and I didn't handle much of security incidents. I handled a lot of tech incidents, like this was configured in the wrong way and this and that. But I think, count by hand the number of security incidents that I had, because we usually dealt with it from the start. So projects on the high-level design documents, we had a bullet of security always, like deal with it and take it into consideration. So if you take it into consideration as early as possible, I think we can eliminate a lot of the things later on. And we can do it by code reviews, security tooling, and a lot of other practical ways to do it.
Excellent. Brian, I'm going to let you go and then come to Hope. So
Yeah,
Hope,
sure.
I'm giving you a chance to think on it.
So number one, we need a good platform that has all security compliance, everything baked into it. If it's outside the platform, it doesn't exist. It's fantasy. But that's not enough. I mean, we need to have leadership incentivizing workflows so that I'm used to making frequent small changes all the time. That I never use any process other than my standard process to do anything, so that I'm not trying to make up some emergency process in the middle of the night to fix an incident. I have my boring process we've tried all the time to go and fix production that has all the quality processes baked into it. And if I have that, then yeah, I'm probably going to get woken up. I will. I've been a developer for a long time, but I will be able to fix things rapidly, securely, quickly, with the minimum chance of making mistakes. And that allows me to sleep much better at night.
Absolutely. Hope.
So when you talk about sleeping better at night, I always think about years ago, the wake ups in the middle of the night. Those are not fun. But if I don't reuse anything anyone else has said, all very good points. So thank you for letting me listen to those. The only thing I think I would insert is use data to your advantage. Figure out what your greatest potential exposures are, right? What are your most critical systems, your most critical resources, or the ones, maybe have a few holes in them, that nobody knows about, and make some informed decisions and start tracking, because at some point you may need an investment to go further. And by tracking this information, maybe you can make a case, a somewhat objective case, right, to management. And then by also tracking, hopefully you can improve your security incident response process, your MTTR, and that over time, that agile, that iterative, you work it and you work it and you work it. After a while, hopefully you're left with some, very small things to address, or something that you just couldn't see. But in that case, still, hopefully, your incident response plan is rock solid and it'll get you through it.
Fair. Guys, we made it 35 minutes into this session. We haven't mentioned AI. Amazing. Amazing. But I feel like we need to here. You know, because as we look back and then look forward, well, first of all, I guess the threshold is, will AI have an impact on this? Will it allow us to sleep better at night?
Oh
Will
yeah.
it make for better platforms? Will it make for easier lives for developers? Thoughts, Brian, you said, oh, yeah, confidently.
Mhm.
Why so
Well,
confident?
Well, number one, so I read a blog post not long ago called "AI is Taking Our Job," where the punchline is that if you're a commodity coder who just focuses on uh, data structures and algorithms, I can replace you with a machine tomorrow. But if you understand the business problem we're trying to solve, AI can't replace you. But I've been running experiments with like loading in internal documentation and making it a chat bot instead of having to go and search for stuff. Find things in policy a lot faster. Just improve the developer experience of things we have to look up all the time internally, not even externally, things we can't Google. Using it for coding assistance. I've been doing it, and I'm not a Python developer, except now I'm a Python developer because I have ChatGPT, right? I understand what code looks like and understand the problem I'm trying to solve. AI helps me solve it in another language because that's the language I need to use. And so these are, it's absolutely an enabling tool that should be part of every platform.
Yeah,
Thoughts?
Alan, I would add in Brian's spot on, and the reason why I think that there's a huge impact here is the velocity of adoption, and what I mean by that is not just some words. It's when we did a poll about 9 months ago, we found that 18% of organizations were using AI in their production workloads, and then we reran the same poll 9 months later, and that jumped to 54% of AI being incorporated into production workloads. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen; it's when it's happening, and it is happening now, right? And you have to remember, AI is an enabler. It's an accelerator to enabler. But is it going to help in all cases? No. Is it going to cause a little bit of disruption? We clearly see that's the case. But we also know that with regards to platform, actionable insights, early actionable insights make for informed decisions. And right now there's a human in the loop. I think there will be a human in the loop for a while for most organizations. But at some point, the confidence level will be high that AI will be able to address those changes.
One trend that is starting to emerge, everyone knows about internal developer platforms, but there's a trend now with AI for intelligent developer platforms. It is very early days, but this is the centralization, contextualization of that developer's work, maybe security concerns, maybe some predictive information based on patterns they see in how this person has coded over time to help them start to work in ways they can work more securely. But those platforms, however many years they are from sliding down the other side of that curve, right? Those will be revolutionary. You have something there that understands how you work, understands the patterns, can connect that to the larger enterprise, understands the tools, brings you help documentation, has some predictive abilities. I think it will be revolutionary.
Hilo, what about you?
And then you need to secure this.
Exactly.
So nobody will take advantage.
Who's watching the watcher, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we see a lot of trends going on, and people talking about prompt engineering. The fact that if you want to, example, if we talk about ChatGPT, we want to get proper or suitable solutions, we need to prompt it wisely. So I'm not sure in terms of AI if we will, like in security, if we will only talk about prompting or any utilizing of models and etc. But it could be an enabler also in this case because AI knows everything and has access to everything. But we need to train it to be thoughtful of that, because if we don't put the emphasis on that, then it will just keep on talking and putting the emphasis on anything else like performance and all the things that are very, very important, but always security seems to be on the sidelines when it comes to, at least in my talks with ChatGPT. So we could definitely leverage AI for predicting security threats and all sorts of things, but we need to make sure that we do it in a way that is highlighting security and addressing it better, let's say.
Excellent. Guys, we've got maybe 4 or 5 minutes left at most. I wanted to return to something that we talked about right in the beginning. And, as I think I mentioned, I don't know if it was before my mic was working, I was lucky enough to be involved along with Hope in one of the satellite sessions, or I think they called it watch parties, we did in New York on Wednesday, right, 2 days ago. And we did a panel there, and the idea was working as a team, right? How does platform engineering, DevOps, DevSecOps, Agile, SRE, all these are movements, buzzwords, frameworks, whatever you want to call them. How do these all work together to the benefit of our customers, whether the customer be developers, end users, or what have you? How do we make them all work together, right? There's been too much of, oh, DevOps is dead, platform's the new DevOps, or Agile 25 years in and is making a lot of failures. It's done some pretty good things too. SRE, I mean, it's important. You need these, we need all of these things. We need DevSecOps, right? We need security built in here, not bolted on. Last words for all of you. How do we emphasize, hey, it takes a village, it takes a team, it takes a community.
The reason I list
Mhm.
myself as a value stream architect on LinkedIn is because what we're trying to do is go from idea to delivery and get feedback as rapidly as possible. And it includes everything, HR, marketing, everything, right? And so if you're not looking at that from the how do we serve the customer best and how do we work together to get that done, a trunk is not an elephant. You have to look at the whole elephant, right? And so what are we trying to do? The goal is not SRE. The goal is not DevOps. The goal is meeting the customer's goals, needs.
I like that, Brian. Anybody else thoughts on that?
He basically stole my answer. But double down. You have to be aligned, right? And people have to connect to something larger than the individual team or their individual practice. And that starts outside each of these teams. There's a responsibility from executive leadership. There's an responsibility leadership of functional groups to make those goals and priorities clear, and also to align incentives with that, because everyone knows about organizations where something blows up. This guy goes in and rides to save the day. Is he the one also setting the fire? Right? So align your incentives and align your goals.
Yeah, there's I think with the risk of repeating the same thing without having a different way of spinning it, I think the one element I would add to it is, and it's probably just going to have a little bit of different flair. It's what I started with the opening and the conversation. It's like there's all these different words and all these different things. I don't think any business organization is saying, okay, we don't need one of these. I think they're saying like, we need all the functions that come out of this. It really comes down to the maturity of the organization and how they can adopt or how they're shifting. I don't know one organization that's sitting there going, we don't need any DevSecOps practices in our, they're of course they're looking at security. They need to make sure that happens, but they're also going, we want to strive for perfection, but we can't get to perfection and never release. That's just not going to happen. So there has to be some level of kind of intersection between the business KPIs, the culture of the business, and then incorporating the processes and the methodologies to layer on top of it. That's just it's a maturity area.
Healer, I'm going to give you the last word because we're about out of time.
Sure. So I think it's easy for managers or C-levels to have this already incorporated in their line of thought, but I always advocate for developers to have security mindset, cost mindset, because these are the things that they don't usually think of in their day-to-day. So, for example, in my day-to-day, whenever I do something and I'm not sure if it is, and I'm doing it the right way security-wise, then I reach out to the security team and just send them a message and say, hey, I wanted to consult about XYZ, and that's it. So I would recommend other people not to look at security team as a hurdle, as an obstacle, but as an enabler to clarify any fog that you have in your day-to-day. And if you consult with something, it's okay, you just consult. It doesn't mean that it will blow up to a meeting of, okay, let's discuss it and let's do a redesign and stuff like that. No, if we take things early on, we decide on a new project, a new system that we want to create, do a high-level design meeting, invite security, have them sign off on whatever we are planning, and then no surprises later on, because everyone is agreed on what we're gonna do. Even if we are not, like, on conscious level, we decide not to do things 100% secured, but do some quick and dirty things, and we are agreeing that this is the way to go in this point in time, then all is okay. And this also serves the business goal, because we say, okay, we need to do it quickly. Everyone is agreeing on that, and we will fix it whenever we can and put it in the backlog in a prioritized way. But that's the thing, we need to be aligned with everything. Everyone wants to pull to their directions, but if we are aligned with the business goals, as Brian Finster said, I don't know why I mentioned your last name. I'm sorry, Brian. Just split out of it. So if we are aligned with the goals, and not only project level, but also day-to-day level, for the developers to think about cost and security, etc., then I think we can do it and achieve it in a day-to-day, and not have to have millions of meetings in order to really incorporate it and instill it in the company's culture.
I love it. Guys, we're out of time. We're actually over time. Brian, Hila, Paul, Hope, thank you all so much. For folks watching this, you know, it's been a great week of PlatformCon 24. Can't wait for the next one. Hope you've enjoyed this and all of the other sessions. You know what? At the end of the day, it is about teamwork. I'm going to leave you with that. This is Alan Schimmel. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Thank you.